It's quite normal to repressurise your central heating system once or twice a year, as most systems will lose a small amount of pressure over time. Now, if you think about the tyres on a bicycle, if you're not checking the air pressure on a regular basis within those tyres, then the chances are you'll need to put some air in them to make your journey a little bit easier. Now, the main problem with only having to repressurise your central heating system once or twice a year is that it's easy to forget how to do it. So instead of having to wait for someone to call round, hopefully the following videos will get you back up and running in no time at all. Now, if your boiler has all of a sudden stopped working and is displaying the fault code of either E118 or E119, then this is the boiler telling you that the pressure in the system has dropped below 0.5 bar and it needs to be topped up with water. Now, these boilers work really hard to provide us with heating and hot water throughout the year, and occasionally you do need to give them a little drink to help them tick along. Now, once you've identified that the boiler is indicating a low water pressure fault, you will need to turn the power off to the boiler from the fuse spur, which is usually located near the appliance. Now, if you don't have a fuse spur, don't panic, but it may be wired into a plug socket. Over the years, there have been a few different variations of filling loops, but to be quite truthful, they all do the same job. And that job is to get water from the cold mains into your central heating system. So I'd like to show you how to use the filling loops that you're most likely to see in your homes. Have a look underneath the boiler for a green lever located to the right hand side near the front of the appliance. Pull the lever down and you will now hear water entering your central heating system. It's important to keep an eye on your pressure gauge whilst holding open the green lever to monitor the amount of water that you're putting into the system. Once the needle has risen to around the top end of the green pizza slice, simply let go of the green lever. This type of filling loop incorporates an internal air brake, allowing the filling loop to remain in place. So it's quite normal to get a few spots of water from the Easyfill filling loop once you have released the lever. If you're happy with the job that you've done, turn the power back onto the appliance and enjoy the comfort of having your heating and hot water back up and running. Look underneath the boiler for two blue taps, located to the right hand side near the front of the appliance. These taps should be in the off position. To check that they are turned off, make sure the blue taps are pulled towards you and look like they're running vertically across the pipe. Now remove the two brass caps that are attached to the filling loop by the black rubber straps. You may need to use a set of grips or spanner to remove these caps. A small copper bend with two brass wing nuts attached, along with two rubber washers, should have been left on site by your installer. Now, in some circumstances, this copper elbow may already be in place. If you're struggling to find the copper elbow and washers, then double check on top of the boiler or see if it's with the appliance documentation. You will need to attach the copper bend to either side of the filling loop, making sure that you use the rubber washers. If the washers have been lost or misplaced, do not attempt to repressurise the boiler, as you will get wet and could also damage your property or appliance. Tighten the brass wing nuts in place using your fingers, making sure that they go on square. If it feels like it's not going on square, undo the brass wing nut, realign and start again, as you may be cross-threading the connection. With the copper bend in place, it's now time to let some water in from the cold main side to the central heating side. The blue tap on the left hand side of the filling loop is on the cold main side. Push this away from you towards the wall that the boiler is mounted on. Now, at times this can feel like you're turning it the wrong way, or even feel like you're doing something wrong, as this tap can become stiff over time. As you can see, the blue tap is now horizontally in line with the pipe, allowing the cold mains water to travel past this blue tap, arriving at the second blue tap. The water is now waiting for you to open the blue tap on the right hand side of the filling loop, allowing the water to enter the central heating system. So with your finger and thumb, Slowly push it away from you until you can hear water starting to flow. Now don't be tempted to open this tap fully, as you're now in control of the amount of water going into the system. If your pressure has only dropped slightly, you don't need to open the second blue tap fully, as you may run the risk of over-pressurising the system. With your finger and thumb still on the blue tap, keep an eye on the pressure gauge to see the needle on the gauge rising to around the top end of the green pizza slice. Once you're happy with the position of the needle, pull the blue tap towards you and you should notice the sound of water come to a stop. Now pull the blue tap on the left hand side towards you, which will stop the flow of water through the copper bend. It might be worth grabbing an old towel at this point, as when you undo the brass wing nuts, the water that is left inside the copper bend may trickle out. Undo the brass wing nuts, remove the copper bend and both washers and keep them somewhere safe. The brass caps that are swinging from the rubber straps should then be refitted. On some systems, it's quite possible that you have a flexible braided hose type filling loop with no taps on it at all. Now you often see these when a system boiler has been installed and the filling loop is in a different location to the boiler. So when you look underneath the boiler, expecting there to be a filling loop, you may be surprised to find that there isn't one there. There is a good chance that the filling loop is located near to where the cylinder has been installed. You're looking for a silver flexible hose, hopefully with a pressure gauge nearby, otherwise you might not be able to tell how much water is going into the system. If the filling loop doesn't appear to have any taps or levers, then you may need to dig out a flat blade screwdriver from your trusty toolbox in the shed. With your flat blade screwdriver, turn one of the valves so that the line now runs in line with the pipe. At this point, I would get comfortable with the operation of the valve and understand how to turn it off. With the first valve now open, this will allow water to make its way to the second valve. Again, with your flat blade screwdriver, turn the second valve slowly until you can hear water flowing. If you have a pressure gauge nearby, monitor the pressure and watch the pressure needle rise to hopefully around 1 bar. Once the pressure needle is around 1 bar, close the filling loop valve off by turning it with your flat blade screwdriver. You should now turn off the other side of the filling loop and check for any water leaks. If you've accidentally put too much water into the system, then don't panic, as there is a simple solution to relieve the pressure. For this, you will need a radiator bleed key, an old cloth or a towel, and what I found to be quite useful in the past is a foil baking tray, as these can slide under most radiators and also they can be bent around an obstruction if required. So with your radiator bleed key located on the radiator vent and your towel on top of the radiator ready to soak up any water, turn your radiator key a quarter turn anti-clockwise. Now you may be able to hear air coming out of the radiator, or if the system is full, you will start to see water coming out. Keep an eye on the water level within the tray and close the vent by turning it a quarter turn clockwise. Be careful not to over tighten this, as the next person that may struggle to undo the vent could be yourself. Once the vent is closed, wring your towel out into the tray and dispose of the water. If there is no sign of air or water after turning your vent key, try turning it another quarter turn anti-clockwise. Now the trick here is all about control and taking your time. You don't want to turn your vent key too much, as you run the risk of having the vent come out and you may struggle to get it back in. Now go back to your boiler and check on the pressure gauge. If the pressure is still too high, you will have to go back to the radiator and repeat this process again. If the water coming out of the radiator smells a little bit odd, then this may well be the inhibitor that was put into the system by your installer. If you've had to drain quite a large amount of water from the system to get your pressure back to where it should be, it might be worth mentioning it to your installer so he or she can check on the concentration levels at their earliest convenience.